Thank you, Corey. So, as Corey said, I am a patient advocate. My online persona is writer, science geek, and lung cancer patient activist. I come by my geek cred honestly. I have engineering degrees from MIT and Caltech. I'm a retired aerospace systems engineer, but I've taken a journey I never would have imagined back in my undergraduate hacking days at MIT. Since my metastatic lung cancer diagnosis 5 years ago, I've repurposed my system engineering and writing skills to focus on improving outcomes and quality of life for cancer patients. I'm going to share how some of my social media experiences have contributed to this. It all started when I became an e-patient. E-patients are not just patients who go online to find medical information, which the majority of online people do. They can be any patient who is equipped, engaged, empowered, and enabled. These patients can also become equal partners in their care. Evidence shows being an engaged patient improves outcomes for patients and reduces costs for the healthcare system. Connection to other patients through online communities provides essential information, connection to resources, and most importantly, hope. And hope is not just the belief that you might live longer. Hope is the belief that you will live well with your disease. You might be concerned that getting medical information online is dangerous. So far, it's not. The Pew Internet research has found that 60% of users who go online for medical information found that they are someone they know has been helped. Only 3% say they are someone they know has been harmed. So my disease is lung cancer. Lung cancer treatment is at the forefront of genomic targeted therapies. Right now, about 75% of primary lung adenocarcinomas have genomic driver alterations that are treatable either with approved drugs or with experimental drugs. Yet many metastatic lung cancer patients are sent home on hospice and have never gotten genomic testing or been told about clinical trials. Some patients get told about genomic testing, but at the moment they can't afford it because the insurance doesn't cover it. Sharing information in online patients' communities can help overcome some of these barriers. From other e-patients, I learned about clinical trials, molecular testing, genomic sequencing, and how to obtain my own data. I also learned that I fit the profile of a typical ROS1 positive lung cancer patient. So after my second progression on traditional therapies, I found a place that was testing, and there was only 2 places in the world that were testing for ROS1. I arranged to get my tissue tested because my doctors knew nothing about it. And I enrolled myself in a clinical trial at the University of Colorado. So thanks to research and other patients, I have had no evidence of disease for 3 years and counting on a clinical trial. So essentially, without the online patient community, I would be dead now. Online communities are a mix of patients and caregivers, but for speed, I'll just say patients. Online, patients can find others with their same disease on the same treatment who share similar experiences. These communities answer questions that we didn't think to ask at clinic appointments when we were still recovering from the shock of the word cancer. They share how they cope with side effects. They discuss the emotions of dealing with the terminal diagnosis. So on my cancer journey, I essentially had access to a support system of thousands online. Each online community has a unique structure, features, personality, and moderation style. Some sites aggregate de-identified comments and data and share them with healthcare providers and the public to give people a better idea of the disease. Some patients form their own disease-specific communities on social media platforms with more familiar interfaces, like Facebook. They might share info in a public or closed group about news articles, journal articles, videos from doctors, and trusted online resources. And there's a lot of trusted resources, like the National Cancer Institute, medical societies, cancer centers. There's a lot of places to go with good, valid data. There are also patient blogs, which describe individual disease experiences and advocacy efforts on a variety of platforms and media. The more successful bloggers share ways to live well with their disease. Some sites enable interaction between healthcare professionals and patients. cancergrace.org connects patients who have certain cancers with medical oncologists, radiation oncologists, and surgeons who blog about new developments, standard of care, and sometimes answer patients' questions on forums. So now let's talk about hashtags and how Twitter can enable communication across all the stakeholders in a community and break down the silos. In 2013, Matt Katz and Simpler generated a cancer tag ontology, part of which is shown here, with hashtags for a wide variety of cancers. Some of these hashtags, like BCSM for breast cancer social media, are quite active. The one I'm most familiar with is lung cancer social media, and I co-moderate the chats on this. It's used by patients, caregivers, clinicians, researchers, advocacy groups, journalists, and others in the lung cancer community. Our biweekly chats cover topics such as overcoming hurdles in lung cancer clinical research. Since the hashtag first appeared in June 2013, it has been used by over 21,000 different Twitter accounts and has made over 586 million impressions. It's even been used to live tweet a patient's journey through a minimally invasive lung cancer surgery. Last year, the President's Cancer Panel held workshops on connected health, and 3 patients were involved, including Corey and myself. Before 2 of the events, we patients guest hosted on the weekly 1-hour chat on healthcare leadership, or HCLDR for their hashtag, and we gathered inputs about how people felt about connected cancer patient. In 2 hours, those chats collected many key patients' priorities that may have taken months to collect in traditional surveys. Examples include cost and outcome transparency, telehealth services, identifying and contacting appropriate clinical trials, and open access to research data. Crowdsourcing is another form of network biology that could improve research, as well as patient outcomes. 2 lung cancer organizations partnered to create the Clinical Trial Innovation Prize on the HeroX platform. Participants submitted ideas aiming to double clinical trial accrual. One winning idea created software to match data from a patient's electronic health record with clinical trial inclusion requirements so that they could recommend trials for the patient within their health system. Crowdsourcing can also fund basic research, as some people in here have talked about earlier, and clinical trials. Consano.org is one site that enables people to fund specific medical research projects that resonate with them, and 100% of the money goes to the research, less the PayPal fees. Co-design brings patients and caregivers together with researchers, doctors, biotech, and pharma to improve research, clinical trial design, healthcare processes, and medical systems. I'm part of an online group of about 85 patients of all cancer types who test positive for ROS1 fusions. This is a rare cancer. Less than 1% of lung cancer patients have it. We contacted the Adaria Lung Cancer Foundation and asked for help in generating more research into our disease. And as a result, we're collaborating on a website specifically about ROS1. And we now have an epidemiological study, if I could pronounce it, that will be going live at the end of the month to collect information on this subject. So at the patient's request, all the study data and results will be open sourced in hopes of accelerating research. Genomic lung cancer research suffers from a shortage of tumor specimens. The majority of lung cancer patients are treated in community hospitals where the specimens are kept only as long as necessary and then usually destroyed. HIPAA prevents researchers from actually asking family members to try and get the data for a deceased patient. So I worked with the University of Colorado with researchers and administrators, and we have created a research study that allows me, as a patient advocate, to contact the family members and initiating moving their loved one's tissue into the biobank. Finally, I want to share a success story. Jay Lake, pictured here, was a prolific science fiction author with a huge social media presence and a friend. In 2012, Jay was running out of treatment options for his metastatic colon cancer. Fans and friends in the science fiction community told him about genomic testing and crowdsourced the funding he needed, which was then considerable, to get whole exome sequencing of both his regular tissue and his tumor, and also do the RNA analysis. At the end of it, Jay was handed a 1 terabyte drive and said, here's your data. So then he paid to have it analyzed. This didn't give him a solution for his cancer, but it did help narrow down his clinical trial options. Jay shared his data with NCI researchers in his clinical trial and then later donated it to the Personal Genome Project here. So although Jay died in 2014, I consider this a success story because Jay very much wanted to contribute to science. But there's a postscript. About 3 months after Jay died, I was at the Stanford Medicine X conference as an e-patient when Jay, or rather his data, appeared on the big screen. A researcher had used open source tools to determine Jay's cancer had a premature stop codon in the APC gene, which apparently is a source of many sporadic colon cancers. This news came too late to help Jay, but I'm hopeful that the tools and data sharing that we're discussing today will someday make such testing and analysis, as well as effective treatment, readily accessible and affordable for all patients. Thank you.